Well, welcome to TruTalk, a podcast series by Trufast, where we dive into the details and discuss all things building envelope. My name's Nick Eshoven. I'm from Trufast division of Alton Low Brink and Company. I mainly focus on the roofing side. I'm here with Jason Wigboldy, our walls expert. But Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're talking about here today?
Yeah, you bet. TruTalk was kind of a genesis or a thought process of how we can share what we've accumulated over the years, both as an organization as well as just individually, being involved so much in different areas of the business, from product development to testing to engineering, customer perspectives. As an organization, a lot of times we try to internalize all that, but we have the opportunity and the luxury to participate in so many different conversations that we want to kind of share what we learn overall to improve the industry and hopefully help educate others as we continue to educate ourselves as industry experts. So that was really what we wanted to do with TruTalk. So this will be a fun series, multiple series and episodes covering all different kind of topics. Talk about roof, walls, maybe even a little bit below grade as well if we get into it, but ultimately trying to share what we've learned over our careers.
So speaking of careers, how many years are you in the building envelope?
Oh, goodness, yeah. With Trufast, formerly with Rodenhouse, which came in by way of acquisition, I started there in about 1999. So I'm about 26 years or so in. I spent about 5 of those years actually in a part-time gig doing project management for a large commercial contractor up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I live, and had the opportunity during that time to learn about kind of the bidding, the estimating, the architectural specifications, kind of the process of how buildings are designed and then fundamentally built. And then prior to that, I spent all my life growing up in high school and college framing and construction and concrete and siding and you name it. We did everything with a small general contractor in Idaho where I grew up. So fundamentally, to answer your question, it's been my entire career has been spent on construction. So, and how about you, Nick?
So I kind of fell into this a little bit, but I think I've been 10 years here with Trufast on the roofing side. But what I found was a really interesting industry, a lot of great people, but especially I think a lot of times people take for granted, we're just throwing pieces of wood together, throwing a building together, and there's not much to it. But the building science side of it, there is a lot to it. There's a lot of research going on, a lot of cool stuff, the technology that continues to develop in this industry, and that's what's A, exciting, and B, I think what we're going to talk about a little bit here.
No, you bet. And so we're in the Midwest right now. I mean, we're in Ohio at the corporate headquarters in Bryan, Ohio, and we're surrounded by buildings, old farmland buildings, old farmhouses and barns that sometimes are 150 years old. And when I drive from Grand Rapids down to Ohio, I always enjoy looking at these old buildings, and it's always kind of striking to think that we could build buildings that old or that long ago that are still standing and largely still in great shape and great use. And it starts to then bring to question, why does the building envelope matter fundamentally? In other words, what has changed so much that we now as an organization, as an industry, have to focus so much on keeping buildings tight?
Back in the old days, you just you threw as much material into the building as you could, but at the same time, these buildings were open, drafty. A lot of time, back in the old days, they didn't even have windows in them, but they just kind of breathed, so to speak, with the environment as air came through them. But things like moisture management wasn't a big concern because if the building got wet in the wet season, it just dried out in the dry season as air moved through the building. Well, you fast forward to today, everybody's looking for energy efficiency with a building, and you mentioned before, we tighten it up. We seal the building in. As soon as you get a building sealed, now you got moisture management problems.
Yeah. It's funny. I look over my career in terms of how I was building buildings back in the 90s or so versus how we build buildings today. And it has been nothing but change and evolution. Fundamentally, from a building code perspective, if I kind of look back at different phases in my career, back in the early 2000s or so, we finally got a pretty good understanding, I think, in the U.S. of how to integrate air barriers into our structures. You look back in the 90s and before, there was a lot of leaky building crisis that existed with different types of cladding where we attempted to use air barriers and water barriers and certain types of cladding, but because of a lack of ability for moisture to get out of the wall, those air barriers would oftentimes trap moisture inside inside those walls. So when air barriers were required, it was a step in the right direction to make the buildings tighter, but in doing so, we started to also trap moisture in. We also had issues with dew point, and so that was addressed starting around 2010 with ASHRAE 90.1. Where it began to require continuous insulation to now wrap our buildings in a continuous exterior layer, or could be used interior as well. But it's really this additional layer of the insulation that fundamentally changed how buildings are built today. And that layer of insulation does so many different things. It not only insulates just purely from an energy loss perspective, but also pushes the dew point outboard of the air and water resistive barrier, so that any condensation that forms from evaporation or the condensing of humid air on the outside, it will only condense in the outside layer of that water and air resistive barrier, which means that we can now manage the water. It's not going to accumulate inside the wall. We can push it to the outside. But of course, with that layer of insulation also comes other challenges. How do we attach the cladding now outboard of that relatively soft, non-structural layer, in essence? And so specifically for Trufast, what we've been focusing on a lot is attachment solutions, not just to structurally attach through the air and water barrier and the continuous insulation layer, but how do we do it in a way that doesn't jeopardize the performance of those systems, air, water, and thermal? So when I look at my career, it's been a massive evolution of how we build it and adapting and developing products that address all those concerns for walls. So on the roofing side, you see similar development and evolution, of course, as well. So curious what you're seeing on the roof.
So the roof, and I know we'll talk about it more. We've talked about it in the past, but we'll talk about it more on the podcast here. The roof is highly systemized. Meaning, you went back 20, 30 years ago and a contractor would walk into a commercial distribution yard and they'd say, okay, give me a bale of insulation, give me 2 rolls of membrane and 3 buckets of screws so I can go build my roof. It's become systemized in that now usually they'll work with a system manufacturer that has all the materials kitted together for them. So instead of saying, all right, I need a bale, I need a couple of rolls and a couple buckets of screws, I need a system for 3,000 square that I'm going to put down. And that system manufacturer will kit it all together for them. They will also, if Mr. or Mrs. Contractor comes and does a training course with them, all right, you are a 5-star certified contractor to install our materials, and then we'll give you a warranty along with that. So that systemization has really changed a lot of dynamics in the industry, but you still have a lot of the same fundamental problems. So back to your question, changes. 1 would be systemization. 2, it does go along with everything you've said on the wall. The roof is starting to come around to this concept of thermal performance, where I've heard you say this before, and I like this phrase. There's 6 sides to a building. A lot of times you think about the 4 walls, you forget about the roof sometimes when it comes to thermal performance. But in a large commercial building, you're losing a lot of energy out through the roof. So energy performance when it comes to the roof is a big deal. And then you talked earlier about moisture management. Moisture management in a roof used to mean we're just keeping water out. But again, the tighter we seal up buildings, the more you run the risk of hot, humid air coming through the building, getting into your roofing layers. And you talked about dew point, which I'm sure we'll get in more detail in later podcasts. But if you hit the dew point anywhere in the roofing layer, that hot, humid air condenses, and now you've got water condensing under your waterproofing roof layer. So a lot of the same trends that you see in the wall side that you brought up, I think it's the timing has been a little different of how the roof has become aware of it. But
And Nick, if you could, just to kind of lay a baseline understanding for the audience of what are those common layers that you typically see on a roof, and what are the common assembly types that you might encounter just on your average typical roof for new construction versus, say, maybe remodel or re-roof.
Yeah. So at your most basic level, if you go at a top down of a commercial roof, and we say commercial roof, really the proper term is low slope roof, 312 pitch or less, basically where shingles stop working. So what we have is a waterproofing layer at the top. Underneath of that, you're going to have some insulation that depending on what you're building, where you're building, could be anywhere from 2 inches thick to 12 or more inches thick. So you've got waterproofing, you've got insulation. When you get into, call it more high-end systems, or you may have a cover board in there, you may have a thermal barrier in there. Underneath of it all, again, depending on where you're building, what you're building, you may have a vapor barrier that goes over the top of your structural deck component. So that's kind of the fundamental layers.
So we see very similar layers on the wall side. Going from the inside out, we see typically a structure consisting of either wood studs or steel studs, could be masonry, block, tilt wall, all different types of substrates. And then depending on, again, the use of the building and the budget, speed of the building in terms of when they want to erect it and how quickly, then we're going to see potentially an exterior gypsum sheathing layer, which is oftentimes used in more of a radiant barrier, so fire protection to provide a 1-hour fire-rated wall assembly. It also provides a substrate to which the air and water resistant barrier can be applied, whether it's fluid applied, a peel and stick. So usually it's that structure, some layer of sheathing, whether it's gypsum, potentially OSB or plywood, and then the air and water resistant barrier. And then outboard of that would be the layer of continuous insulation, again, to push that dew point outboard of the air and water barrier. And then some kind of cladding. It's going to be either stucco or brick, could be adhered masonry, like a stone applied on a lath base. It could be a ventilated facade system with either terracotta or fiber cement, metal panels. There is a myriad of different claddings that we see on walls. And I think that's also a key fundamental difference when we look at the difference on roofing versus wall. Is that we have to do more than just simply protect the building from the environment. It also provides the aesthetics of the building on the wall. You really can't see the roof, and so therefore it just has to function. But walls gives the building in a low slope. Yeah, that's a good point. But on the walls, that's what really gives the building a personality. If you're in New Mexico or Arizona, you're going to see that stucco or adobe look that's just classic for the desert Southwest versus in, say, a Harvard or Ivy League school, you're going to expect brick or something very timeless in essence, versus a more modern corporate building. It might be a sleek metal facade that kind of exudes the personality of the company, the corporate culture. And because of that complexity of all the claddings, it makes it way more complex, I believe, in terms of the number of possible assemblies that we have to account for on the wall side, which fundamentally is why we have not seen as much systemization on the walls. So we'll get into all that in future episodes for sure. But
I got a quick question though. One thing that always gets me, on a roof, it's pretty obvious that outer layer has to be watertight. On a wall, though, is that the case?
Absolutely, yeah. The wall itself needs to be, but we think of it in terms of layers.
The wall entire, but when you talk about cladding,
the cladding.
Is cladding watertight?
No, that's a great question. No, you have to pretty much assume that your cladding is not going to be air and watertight unless it's a barrier system where you are depending on the outer layer. You have to assume that there's going to be moisture that gets through your cladding. It's a great question, and that, of course, will dovetail into rainscreen design and rainscreen principles, which I can talk for days and days on that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite subjects. So
I love that term though, rainscreen. The first time I heard that, I'm like, what does that mean? Rainscreen.
Oh, that's right. Yep, for another episode, for sure. Yeah. We'll get into that and some great solutions that are out in the market to provide that drainage of bulk water and ventilation to keep those buildings warm and dry. So,
yeah. Well, that's today's episode. You can subscribe to our newsletter at Trufast.com to get notified when a new episode drops or get updates on what's happening in the world of building science.
You can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for more building envelope content. You can browse all of our attachment solutions for wall and roof and find more educational articles and resources under TruTalk in the resources section.
Until next time, we hope all of your projects stay true and hold fast.